it called the most powerful and successful military alliance in history. It was born from the ashes of World War II, and for over 75 years, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, has shaped global security. But what is it really? How did it even start? And how has it changed over the decades? Well, today, we're going to break down the whole story of NATO. Okay, so let's get right into it, because to really understand NATO, you have to start with this one single powerful idea that it was built on. It's the absolute heart of the entire alliance. At its core, NATO is all about something called collective security. The easiest way to think about it is like a team promise. Yeah, it's an intergovernmental military alliance, which is just a very formal way of saying it's a club of countries that have all agreed to watch each other's backs. It's a defensive pact, plain and simple. And this sentence right here, this is the engine of the whole thing. This is Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, and it is an ironclad promise. If any one member country gets attacked, all the other members will treat that as an attack on themselves. That commitment, that all for one, one for all idea, is what gives NATO its incredible strength. So you have to ask, right? A promise that powerful doesn't just come out of nowhere. What kind of world makes an alliance like NATO not just a good idea, but an absolute necessity? Well, for that, we've got to go back to the late 1940s. I want you to just picture Europe in 1945. The continent was shattered. Nations were just struggling to rebuild from these war-torn landscapes, and there was this deep sense of insecurity hanging over everything. And that fear was being fueled by one major, looming presence: the Soviet Union, which was expanding its influence across Eastern Europe at a scary pace. And things escalated really, really fast. In 1948, a Soviet-backed coup in Czechoslovakia toppled a democratic government. Then, a little later, the Soviets tried to force the Western Allies out of Berlin with a blockade, which brought the US and the USSR right to the brink of another war. You can just imagine the sense of urgency these events created. Western Europe knew it needed a security guarantee, and it needed it now. So in 1949, 12 nations came together and signed the North Atlantic Treaty. You had the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and 8 other European countries. And for the US, this was a massive shift. It was the first peacetime military alliance the nation had ever joined outside of the Western Hemisphere. It really marked the end of its long history of isolationism. So for 4 decades, NATO's mission was crystal clear: deter the Soviet Union. But then, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. It just disappeared. So what happens to a defensive alliance when its main reason for existing is suddenly gone? Did NATO lose its whole purpose? Well, NATO basically had a choice: evolve or become irrelevant. During the Cold War, it was a purely defensive force, kind of like a guard standing watch. But after 1991, it had to reinvent itself. It became what you might call an active security provider, getting involved in crisis management, peacekeeping, and even military interventions far beyond its own borders. And get this, the only time Article 5 has ever actually been used wasn't for a Soviet invasion. It was in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the United States. It's this incredible historical irony, right? An alliance built to defend Europe from the Soviets was first called to action to defend America from non-state terrorists. And that directly led to NATO's longest military mission in its history. And that mission in Afghanistan was just one of many. Back in the 90s, NATO got involved in Bosnia and Kosovo, which were its first major military interventions. It's led anti-piracy missions off the coast of Somalia. It enforced a UN no-fly zone over Libya in 2011. This list just shows you how dramatically its job description has expanded. So that brings us to the alliance today. In the 21st century, NATO has kept on growing, but it's also facing a whole new set of really complex challenges. Everything from arguments inside the group to new threats from the outside, and all of it makes people question its relevance in the modern world. The way NATO has grown tells a story all by itself. From the original 12, it grew to 16 during the Cold War. But the biggest change came after 1991, when former Warsaw Pact countries like Poland and Hungary joined. Now, the West saw this as securing new democracies, but Moscow? Moscow saw this eastward expansion as a direct threat, and that has been a source of tension ever since. Most recently, of course, Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine pushed historically neutral countries like Finland and Sweden to join, looking for that Article 5 protection. So today, NATO stands as an alliance of 32 nations. That's nearly triple its original size. And that expansion eastward, right up to Russia's borders, has been one of the most significant and, let's be honest, contentious geopolitical shifts of the last 30 years. But, a bigger alliance brings bigger challenges. A big one is always about money. All the members pledge to spend at least 2% of their economic output on defense, and this has been a constant source of debate. Some countries, like the US and Poland, they consistently hit that target, but others have historically fallen short. And this isn't just about a budget. It's a political hot potato that sparks tensions over burden sharing and leads to some pretty pointed questions between leaders. But what's really wild is that recent history has brought NATO full circle. After decades of focusing on crises far away from Europe, Russia's aggression in Ukraine has snapped the alliance's focus right back to its original mission: collective defense against a major power in Europe. In a way, it's given NATO a renewed, if pretty chilling, sense of purpose. Which leaves us with this final thought. NATO was created to face down the Soviet Union. It evolved to fight terrorists and pirates. Today, its focus is once again on Russia. But as all these new threats start to pop up, from managing its own internal political divisions to fighting cyber warfare and dealing with the rise of China, can an alliance that was forged in the fears of the 20th century really meet the challenges of tomorrow?